Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Boulder on this second Sunday of the new year. This new year has gotten old rather quickly, has it not? This community is grateful for the loving opportunity that Reverend David brought to us last Sunday, as we were able to share a time for comfort and connection, both with ourselves and for our greater community, which has suffered such a devastating loss. Hello, my name is Fred Cole, and I'm pleased and honored to be the worship leader for today's service. We welcome all at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Boulder. Excuse me. All of you are welcome, and all of you are sacred. Whatever your past was like, whatever this present moment is like for you, we invite you to journey into the future together. UUCB's worship theme for this month of January is living with intention. And here's what Katie Covey, the director of the School of the Spirit at Boulder Valley Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, has to say about goals, resolutions, and intentions. Intention is different from setting goals or resolutions, in that intention pulls us into who we really are. Goals and resolutions are what push us out into the future and into future possibilities. To set intentions, we must listen to our inner voice, which tells us who we truly are. Katie Covey. The open house, which was planned in recognition of Ingrid's stay of removal at Rincon del Sol this afternoon, has been canceled. Chat box will be open if you need to get a message to us. If you are a new or online visitor, please email our office administrator, Amy Zen, and let us know how you found us. You will find our email listed in the Zoom chat. Our church website also has a great deal of information about UUCB and our programs and activities. It's my pleasure this morning to welcome back to our pulpit as guest speaker, Reverend Kristen Psaki. Reverend Psaki is a lifelong seeker of the sacred, called to tend to the thresholds of life and death through ritual. practice, and community. She is a Unitarian Universalist minister and a therapist. Her current ministry focuses on psychedelic spiritual care at a mindfulness-based psychedelic therapy clinic here in Boulder. Prior to this, she served as assistant minister for Beloved Community at Foothills Unitarian Church in Fort Collins. She believes that healing is possible, love is transformative, and that all of us need all of us to be free. Please ensure that your microphones remain muted as we join together for worship. Kristen.
Thank you, Fred. Good morning, UUCB. It's so good to be back with you this morning. Our call to worship comes from Rachel Held Evans and Jeffrey Chu's excerpts from their reading On the Days When I Believe. On the days when I believe, the sun streaks across the east, showing me that green isn't one color, but a million. On the days when I believe the raucous laughter of my kids sounds like the prelude to a grander symphony, a promise of unadulterated joy to come. On the days when I believe, I regard the tulip tree outside my kitchen window and learn from it. Rooted but flexible, it adjusts to the seasons. On the days when I believe, I feel enfolded in a story so much greater than my own. It's a story that knits together 1,000 generations of saints, which is to say, folks like you and me who wrestle with their questions and their doubts, who interrogate the systems and structures of the society around them, who search for a way to make sense of it all, and who wonder whether they belong and whether they're loved. On the days when I believe, a prayer feels like it's just another beautiful beat in a long-running conversation. Nothing is withheld. Everything finds its place, whether lament or hallelujah. And then there are all the other days. Come, friends, whatever day today is for you, let us worship together.
Song with me.
If you're joining us online, and of course you all are, and have a candle or chalice near your computer, please get ready to light it. We invite you to type into the chat box where your chalice is being lit, the street or the neighborhood, or what city if you are joining us from outside of Boulder County. Larry Metzroth is here to light this morning's chalice.
Good morning, UUCB. I'm lighting the chalice in my book nook at 48th and Arapahoe in Boulder. When I agreed to do this, I was somewhat reluctant because I didn't really want to participate in another Zoom event. We did have live events. I relished those live events of last summer and autumn when I got to sit with other members of my community. I like live events because you're with people who can reach out and slap you or hug you, as the case may be. And those things help me learn and grow. But unfortunately, a live event was not to be this morning. I have to be reminded by our worship committee that they don't control the county health protocols, and our own minister observed that it is silly to take risks that we don't need to take. So I relish in the privilege of participating with our guest minister, Kristen Psaki, and my old friend, Fred Cole. And I've dived into the topic of living with intention. Just what does that mean? Living as a noun has many meanings. The one I latched onto is the pursuit of a lifestyle of a specific type. The definition was accompanied by synonyms like conduct, behavior, activities, and many others. Intention, again, as a noun, offers a variety of nuances, but I zeroed in on a thing intended, an aim or plan, with accompanying synonyms like deliberateness, design, calculation, and others. I think of these words in context of another term that I learned a few years ago and used to measure my spiritual progress. It is the ancient Greek term eudaimonia. The ancient Greeks resolutely did not believe that the purpose of life was to be happy. They proposed that it was to achieve eudaimonia, a word which translates as fulfillment. What distinguishes happiness from fulfillment is pain. One always experiences pain by suffering physically or mentally when seeking life's goals. I cannot live with intention if I am unwilling to face distress, pain, sometimes rejection. Eudaimonia encourages me to trust that many of life's most worthwhile projects will at points be quite at odds with contentment, and yet worthy of pursuing nevertheless. In the end, I will achieve something grander and more interesting than happiness. I will have made a difference. I light this chalice in acknowledgement of the members of this congregation the members of our community, and the others who resolve to live with intention to make a difference with their lives.
We now invite all of those gathered in your various locations to join together now in a spirit of community and fellowship. As we say aloud together, our congregation's covenant. Please repeat it with me. We gather in fellowship
Fellowship.
to speak truth to each other, to reach out and touch one another,
to
to care with each other, and to
and
seek
to seek
the truth divine. May
So
it be
be
so.
it.
Kristen?
Thank you, Fred. So I'd like to invite us all now into a brief guided meditation. So it's all an invitation, and if it feels good to you, maybe take a last good little movement and find a comfortable seat just for a few moments. And if it feels good to you, I invite you even to close your eyes, or find a soft gaze, the floor in front of you. And let's start by just taking a couple really deep breaths this morning, maybe in through the nose and out through the mouth. Maybe even audibly exhale if that feels good. Just a couple more like that. Really big inhale, taking in all this new breath, all this new fresh air into your body. And then exhaling, just letting go, releasing. Just one more. Inhaling, taking in all this new life. And just exhaling, letting go. And now coming to the natural rhythm of your breath this morning, whatever that is for you, whatever that is for you today, this morning, right now. Just allowing yourself to mindfully breathe for a few moments. When we slow down our breathing, it communicates to our nervous systems that we're okay. Right now, we're okay. And maybe bringing into your awareness that you're in a community right now of people also breathing. Sharing some precious moments together. And finally, just bringing your awareness to wherever your body sort of makes contact with the seat below you, or your chair, or your couch, or if you're standing, noticing where the bottoms of your feet make contact with the ground. And just breathing here for a moment, allowing yourself to feel these points of contact, allowing yourself to feel held. Allowing yourself to feel held, literally held. Maybe even with each breath, relaxing into that, allowing that feeling, that sensation of being held to exist even more. And in this place of a little bit of stillness, a little bit of quiet, and if your mind is racing, that's totally fine. You can invite that in. In this moment of a little bit of stillness and a little bit of quiet, often so rare for most of us, I invite you to check in with yourself and notice what is on your heart. What joys, and also what sorrows, what concerns. What is truly on your heart this morning, however big or however small? Maybe you come to this gathered community carrying a celebration. Maybe you come carrying the weight of a sorrow. Know that each and all is welcome. And so as we move into our time of blessings and concerns this morning, as it feels good, I invite you to let your eyes open if they were closed, and to share in the chat. To share in the chat whatever you are carrying on your heart this morning. A joy, a celebration, a sorrow, or a concern. And I'll read some out as they come in. Certainly weighing on my heart this morning, as Fred already mentioned, are all those who are navigating life after the fires. Kendall wants you to know that she and Barb collected 28 bags of used clothing for donation this week. Celebration. What's next? Gregory shares his divorce was finalized this week. Thank you, Gregory. Doug shares that my daughter's operation on the 12th is successful. So good to hear, Doug. Deborah shares that my dear friend Jose passed away suddenly. He was a beautiful operatic singer, tenor, sending love to his family, us too, Deborah. And Sharon and Bill share thanks to UUCB for welcoming the Buddhist funeral memorial for my dear friend, LaDonna Shea. Anne shares that I'm new to Boulder and navigating the feelings of loneliness. Thank you, Anne, for sharing. And you're so not alone in that. Lillian shares still waiting for the dove. Thank you to all. You're welcome to continue to share whatever is on your heart this morning. Katie shares that I just lost another baby, my second pregnancy loss. Oh, Katie, sending you love right into your experience right now. Chris and Tom, welcome. And Alan also shares, yes, feeling more isolated once again, now that I don't gather with close friends in restaurants. I so hear you, Alan. I imagine you are not alone. For all these blessings and concerns, dear ones, and all the more that are coming in, as well as those that maybe for you remain silently on your heart, behold this compassionate space with love. We send you love right into your living room with whatever you carry this morning. And thank you. Thank you for all the ways that you continue to bless each other.
There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding all. I rest in this love. There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all that we love. There is a love holding all. We rest in this
Thank you to Christopher Watkins Lamb, the Reverend Christopher Watkins Lamb, for that music. I recently heard someone name that we're living in the Erimocene, or the age of loneliness. When I heard it, I was driving up Sunshine Canyon on my way home. It was dusk, light snow on the ground, the road was quiet. And when I heard it, we're living in the Erimocene, the age of loneliness. I felt this resonance gently ring through my body. Yes, that's right, I thought. Not that it's the only way to capture these times we're in, but one way that names something true. It's one of the things that I love about church. Church is an antidote this age of loneliness. It's a place of connection and belonging. Even right now over Zoom, we've all paused the regular movements of our lives to move as one body, to connect for this one sacred hour in the week, to sing, to share of our joys and sorrows, and to explore big, meaningful questions about life together. And for many people across cultures and time, gathering in this way to pray, to sing, to share on special and purposeful occasions involved plant medicines. It included a sacred and intentional partnership with plants and fungus to expand consciousness beyond ordinary human perception in order to experience what is already here through the support of more than human life. We find this even in the roots of Christianity. A recent bestseller called The Immortality Key by Brian Muraresku explores the long-held theory that an earth-based religious community in ancient Greece that influenced Christianity centered around a group ritual involving a fungus that grows on wheat and barley and which contains a chemical close to LSD. Muraresku's rigorous 10 years of research uncovered an archaeological study that discovered residues of this fungus in a ritualistic drinking vessel dated to this time at a shrine connected to this religious community. And right now, thousands of years later, in 2022, we are in the midst of what many have called the Psychedelic Renaissance. After 50 plus years of the war on drugs, a new wave of research and clinical trials from well-funded and high-profile institutions are sharing paradigm-shifting findings. Researchers at Johns Hopkins have been studying the impact of single large-dose psilocybin journeys on those living with existential distress from a terminal diagnosis. Psilocybin being the psychedelic compound found in magic mushrooms. And they report that a significant majority of its trial participants experience considerable relief for up to 6 months after a single supported journey. Then there are the clinical trials studying the impact of MDMA assisted therapy for those living with complex PTSD. For those living with complex PTSD who have tried every other route to healing available to them. Veterans, survivors of devastating trauma. MDMA being a synthetic psychedelic found in ecstasy, but used in its pure form in this therapeutic context. And the results here aligning with one story I recently read. Her name is Lori. Interviewed after her MDMA-assisted therapy experience, Lori shared that at first she was nervous. But by her side were 2 trained therapists who she had been working with for weeks and who would companion her for each 8-hour experience. After taking the medicine, she laid down in a quiet room. And I imagine that she was surrounded by comforts, a soft couch, in a blanket, inviting lighting, intentional music, an eye covering to support going inward. And Lori came with an intention to turn toward an early childhood trauma that had shaped the rest of her life. She spoke her intention. The therapist held this intention with her. It's where they tacked their collective ship for the journey ahead. In the embrace of MDMA, Lori shares, I was able to find empathy for myself. I realized how much I was thinking was my fault. Lori describes living with PTSD as an experience of feeling unsafe in most places at most times, almost no matter what. And for her, through the safe and intentional use of a psychedelic in a supportive and connective therapeutic relationship, she began to re-story her life. Through an altered state of consciousness in an intentional, safe, and supportive container, she was able to re-see her life from a place of softness and compassion and begin the journey of healing. Whether on NPR, CNN, or through your own copy of Michael Pollan's recent books, perhaps you've caught wind of the therapeutic impacts of psilocybin, MDMA, ketamine, and maybe even ayahuasca and cannabis. I want to invite us to pause here for a moment, to take a moment to check in with yourself. Maybe even take another deep breath and notice what is happening in your own experience as we talk about drugs and psychedelics in this way. What do you notice? Maybe you're feeling curious or intrigued. Maybe you're feeling nostalgic as a child of the 60s. But maybe you're feeling resistant. The groundbreaking benefits of intentional psychedelic use. It's not the story most of us grew up in. It's certainly not the story I grew up in. Born in the 1980s, I grew up with public service announcements featuring a fried egg in a big cast iron skillet with the message, "This is your brain on drugs." Do you remember those? Clearly left a mark for me. I hid my minimal cannabis use as a young adult, feeling the weight of shame around it, which even carried over to legal cannabis use as an adult. Somehow that shame lingering just below the surface. As I began my own training here in Boulder to be a psychedelic sitter and guide, training with cannabis as a psychedelic to support individuals and groups in their healing journeys as a trained minister, I began to see the ways I had internalized narratives from the very successful, decades-long War on Drugs campaign. Launched in the early 1970s with President Nixon at the helm, the war on drugs targeted Black and brown people and communities, even though illegal substances were being used in white communities at equal rates. The racialized drug war was devastating. It devastated families, led to mass incarceration, cost billions, and never worked. It not only didn't work, the war on drugs was never backed by scientific evidence, but by a political agenda. In a 1994 interview with Harper's Magazine, John Ehrlichman, a high-ranking Nixon official, confessed this without hesitation. The Nixon White House, he says, had two enemies, the anti-war left and Black people. You understand what I'm saying? He continues. We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or Black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and Blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. He concludes, succinctly, clearly. But I have to say, that one was hard for me to take in, that quote, that confession, when I first heard it. Revealing, yes. Clarifying, yes. Affirming, yes. Yet also devastating. Today, in the wake of these shifting tides, psychedelic use is up across age groups. Whether it's a weekend ayahuasca retreat or microdosing mushrooms. And maybe that's you, but maybe it's your child or your spouse. In any gathered community, it's here. And what I witness at the root of this reaching for plant medicines, the spirit of this psychedelic renaissance, is a reaching for connection, a reaching for a felt sense of interconnection, of interdependence with all life, a felt sense of belonging to life at the level of the heart, the body, and maybe even the spirit. It's a reaching for this felt connection in the age of loneliness. We know this to be true, right? That we are connected, that you are, that I am interconnected, interdependent, that we belong to the web of life. It's part of the very ground of our faith. And yet it's one thing to know this with our minds, to believe in a thought, and it's another thing to feel it, to feel connected. When do you feel connected? Connected to yourself, to your partner, your friends, to the earth around you. Maybe it's during a robust meditation practice. Maybe it's hiking, or biking, or skiing. Maybe it's food, cooking for yourself or those you love, gardening. And maybe you don't have an answer because you feel the heavy and ever-present ache of disconnection from yourself, from others, from life. I hear you. You are not alone. Intentionally journeying with psychedelics is not the only path toward this felt experience of connection, but it is part of the path for many, as has been the case for centuries. And psychedelics are not a magic cure-all. Healing, whatever that means for you in your life, takes hard work, support, practice, commitment, community, integration. And I don't just mean healing from PTSD. I mean healing from individualism, capitalism, loneliness. Psychedelics are not right for everyone, and they are not right at any or every point in life. Partnering with psychedelics to support your healing and the healing of our communities requires intention. As Fred mentioned in the welcome, I work at a mindfulness-based psychedelic therapy clinic as a minister, not a therapist, as a minister, and specifically in the ancient yet emerging fields of psychedelic spiritual care and psychedelic chaplaincy. I work only with legal medicines, but also offer harm reduction support regardless of what medicine someone is using. If you or someone you love is considering or is already using psychedelics, here's what I would offer. Know your community. Get curious about safety, ethics, and accountability. If you're being led by someone who identifies as a psychedelic guide or shamanic practitioner. Know your medicine. Get to know the medicine you will be using, its history, its makeup, your dose. And finally, integration is the medicine. Intentionally integrating your altered state of consciousness experience into your ordinary day-to-day life before jumping into the next one. This is where the magic is. This is where change can really happen in your life. Each day in this work, I live in growing reverence to the ancient wisdom of plants and the indigenous cultures that preserved these medicines through generations of violence and colonialism. One of my hopes as psychedelic therapy continues to grow is that we make room for spirit. We make room for the spirit, the animating essence, the more than human life that we are taking into our bodies. Maybe specifically when we're talking about plant medicines and fungus medicines, but perhaps also with synthetic psychedelics. And it turns out that at the root of the word eremosine, eremos, is ancient Greek, and most often translates actually to wilderness. Yes, we might feel alone in the wilderness, but the truth is we're also surrounded by life, a complex and beautiful web of life, of which we are a part. In this age of the wilderness, then, when we know and feel our interdependence with all life in our bones, May we offer gratitude to the more than human life in this wild terrain that invites us back into connection each day. The creek in midwinter, the mountains, the plants, fungi. And may this felt sense of connection remind us that we belong in this and to this pulsing wilderness, and that we are loved simply by the nature of this belonging and held by a greater love that holds all. May it be so. Amen.
Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in all. Keep with the web of creation your love. Giving, receiving, as love shows us how. Wake now compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take as your strength and friend, breaking and striving their hardship to end. Wake now my conscience with justice thy guide. Join with all people whose rights are denied. Take not for granted the privilege blessed. God's love embraces the whole human race. Wake now my vision of ministry clear. Brighten my pathway with radiance here. Mingle my calling with all who will share. Good for the planet transformed by our care.
This month, our offering goes to Boulder Food Rescue. And not all of the volunteers at Boulder Food Rescue ride bicycles and pull carts. Here's a story from Lisa and what happened to her at the beginning of the pandemic. Volunteering as a grocery program coordinator during the COVID-19 pandemic has allowed me to view firsthand the needs within my building and in my local community. The number of community members utilizing food support after March 2020 has tripled, whereas there were 6 to 8 households within my community accessing food distribution prior to the outbreak. There are now 19 households requesting food, and 7 of these are families with children. Following the governor's shelter-in-place order, this community's need for food amplified tremendously. BFR assisted me in reacting quickly to these unforeseen and changing needs. It took about 2 weeks for my community to adjust to the protocol changes around food distribution. Sometimes the unwanted items would be returned to my apartment door or to the main area where our food distribution had previously been taking place. Boulder Food Rescue posted signs in the common area, which helped eliminate any misunderstanding, including a sign-up sheet for new participants. This allowed me to continue organizing the program within this group while still avoiding direct contact. Instead of the previous grab and go method for food pickup, my daughter and I began delivering food bags to the households who have signed up. We leave the bags at the president's doors, which further minimizes the community spread, as there are a number of immune compromised residents in our building. And while we were hunkered down, I've seen this community grow stronger, individuals grow closer, ask more of each other, and give more of themselves, more than I believe we ever had done before. There's a new feeling among all of the residents that we're looking out for one another now. You can make a donation using the link posted in our chat, by sending a check to UUCB, or by scanning the QR code on the next slide. I invite you to give as generously as I know we are able. We receive this offering with gratitude. By funding our church and our nonprofit partners, we create connections, relationships, and belonging within the larger Boulder community. Thank you for your gifts.
Friends, may you leave this place knowing that you are connected, surrounded by intelligent life, eager to invite you back into belonging in this great web of all things. May it be so. Amen.
Go your way in peace, wander as you may. Blessed is the path you take, may love guide you on your way. Go your way in peace, wander as you may. Blessed is the path you take, may love guide you on your way.
Thank you all for joining us this morning. I'll bring Barbara in here. And unfortunately, due to prior commitment, Reverend Psaki will be unable to join us for our breakout rooms this morning. However, the rest of you are invited to participate. Steve will be setting those up shortly. And thank you very much, Reverend Kristen. We appreciate your words and your visit with us this morning. There's Barb.